In our reading today, we hear about this old man. He was begging by the side of the road. His name's Bartimaeus. And Bartimaeus is there begging. And he sees Jesus coming by. So he cries out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." But what happens? And this is the thing that astonishes me. People tell this blind man to be quiet. Why would they tell the blind man to be quiet? He's crying out to Jesus so that he could be healed. But people say, it says they rebuked him and told him to be quiet. Why would they tell a blind man to be quiet? The blind man just wanted to be healed, right? Was it because the people that were telling the blind man to be quiet, maybe they were blind to the fact that Jesus had the power to heal Bartimaeus of his blindness? Or maybe the reason why they were telling Bartimaeus to be quiet because they were blind to the cry of the poor. We don't know exactly why they were telling him to be quiet, but I don't understand why they would be telling a blind man to be quiet. Surely they should be saying, "Come on to Jesus," right? Amen? Well, today's reading, our first, second, and third reading, it's not just about spiritual blindness, or physical blindness, it's about spiritual blindness as well. All of us can be spiritually blind in our lives. Our first reading, Jeremiah is telling the people of God, the Jewish people, come back to the ways of God. You've been blind to the ways of God, and you've been following the ways of the world. That led to you being enslaved. You were blind to following the 10 Commandments. And now, come back. God calls you. He wants to set you free. He wants to bring you back into the promised land. But the people were blind. In our own lives, we too can be blind to God's call in our lives to follow His way. Just look at this. How can we be blind in our lives? What are the ways? Think about it. In sports, have we become blind because we think that winning is more important than how we play the game? Have we become blind in school because we think that being popular is more important than being nice to all of our classmates? Have we become blind in our church when we think that following the letter of the law is more important than following the spirit of the law? This is what Jesus was taking the Pharisees, Sadducees, and religious leaders of his day to task about. They were always following the letter of the law and never the spirit of the law. In our workplaces, have we become blind because we think what's more important is getting ahead instead of how we got ahead? Are we stepping on others to get us to the top? In our families, have we become spiritually blind because we've allowed school, sports, work to take us away from our faith and our families? All of us can become spiritually blind in our lives. And so Jesus says to all of us, "What do you want me to do for you?" And just as Bartimaeus said, "Lord, I want to see. Lord, I want to see." Do we truly want to see with spiritual eyes? Do we truly want to be set free? Here's a last example. Halloween. All Hallows Eve. Is it about scary costumes and candy? All Hallows Eve is a holy evening before All Saints' Day. It's a holy day where we start to prepare to honor the holy saints in heaven. Or have we made it into just a celebration of candy and costumes instead of a religious day of preparation to recognize the people who have gone before us, who have been filled with so much love for God that they were no longer blind, that they could see God face to face, and the power of their love changed our world. And so, boys and girls, if you don't know, if you haven't been to one of the school masses, what I like to do is have a word of the day. So, boys and girls, what's the word of the day today? You've heard most of my homily. What's the word of the day all the way back there? You got to use your lungs on this one. Glasses. Glasses. Now, why would glasses be the word of the day? Because glasses help us to see, especially Father Dave. That's an excellent word of the day. I actually thought about using that word of the day. Let's see, do we have another word of the day? Okay, yeah, what's the word of the day? Love for Jesus is the word of the day. That's a word of the day you can never go wrong with. Love for Jesus helps us to become healed of our blindness. When we love Jesus with all of our hearts, our soul, our mind, our body, then we are no longer blind. Amen. That's another great word of the day, but that's not the word of the day I chose. Okay. Word of the day. Sandals. Oh, okay. Sandals. Why is that the word of the day? Because that's for the okay. Sandals, the word of the day. Because it helps us to walk, they help us to walk closer to Jesus, whether we're on the beaches or in the sand. Sandals help us to walk closer to Jesus, and when we walk closer to Jesus, we have eyes to see. Very good. That was a reach. Mr. President, yes? Magnifying glass. That's a great word of the day. Why magnifying glass? That helps you to see closely so we're no longer blind. Is that what your dad uses? Is he using its magnifying? A big one. That's a great word of the day. I'm sorry, boys and girls. Those are great words, but none of those were the words that I chose for the word of the day. Word of the day I chose, scary costume mask. Scary costume mask. Scary, isn't that? Scary costume mask. That's the word of the day. Isn't that scary looking? Scary costume mask. That's the word of the day. Why is it the word of the day? It's the word of the day because Halloween, like I said, we can focus more on the scary costume mask. We can focus more on the candy. We can focus more on the commercialism of Halloween. And we can forget the true importance. We can become blind to the reality of the true importance of Halloween. All Hallows Eve, a holy evening. Now, I got to admit, that was one of the costumes I wore back years and years ago. I still break it out on special occasions. But we're all called to be able to see clearly with the love of Jesus. And so, in our gospel, Bartimaeus was healed. Jesus was there for Bartimaeus, just like Jesus is always there for all of us. And what did Jesus say to Bartimaeus? He says, Bartimaeus, you're blind. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus is always there saying, what do you want me to do for you? Bartimaeus said, I want to see. And so, Jesus heals Bartimaeus. May we all have the courage of Bartimaeus to run after Jesus, even though others may be telling us to be silent, to not believe, to just wear a scary costume mask and make Halloween all about candy and costumes. But Bartimaeus had the courage to say, Jesus, I want to see. He was healed, and so are we. All we have to do is just reach out to Jesus and ask for his healing.